I'm gonna try to share and reflect the lessons I've learned from 2024. I don't even know where to begin. I feel like it's been such a huge year of so much growth. So this is not a linear like order because it would be really hard for me to try to make it linear. So I'm just gonna start like sharing. The first thing that comes up for me is I feel like I've learned a lot about attachment. So the way I see attachment is a blockage that is manifest in the crown chakra. And I learned a lot about the way attachment that we have as humans, whether if it's attachment to a person, a job, a religion, attached to a pattern, to anything really. I mean, material things. A lot of times, like, there's like, I can see like the energetic image of that, and it's like latching on to something, like the attachment is like latching on to something. And a lot of times that I'm noticing is people do it unconsciously because they don't have their own back. Like they don't have a back of anyone, and they can't have their own back because of weak lower energy centers. There's no safety within them. There's no stability, groundedness, like really kind of solid foundation within them. So they found another thing that's external, if it's religion, if it's whatever it is, to be attached on. And that is kind of like creates that safety. So I learned a lot about that this year. Actually, I'm probably gonna make a whole YouTube video of each thing that I don't know if each, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know what I'm gonna say in this video, but I'm kind of seeing like what's coming up. But this one is really gonna be a really good one to make a whole YouTube video about it and, talk about it from the perspective of the chakras and how it kind of shows up in our lives. Because I have a few examples of people that I know. So it is really interesting. Another thing that comes up for me that I learned was about my relationship to my mom. So I shared it in a lot of videos, or I think maybe a few of them, where I started work on my mother wound, which is a really big one for me. When I started working on it like 5 years ago, and I went through the entire spectrum of the emotions when it comes to process my mother wound. So when I started like in childhood, it started from hatred. Like I would pray that my mom will die because this is how much like the connection was so intense, and the karmic connection that we have like was so intense. And then when I started diving into this inner work was like denial and rage and grief and frustration and confusion, and then it kind of shifted into empathy, and then love, unconditional love. It's like it was like entire spectrum of the emotions that I felt in the process of processing my mother wound. And so this year I feel like it went to like a layer deeper where I could really understand and feel that there is a specific energy structure to our relationship. So the way like what I mean by that is I could literally feel the energetics behind my relationship with my mother. So there's a lot of emotional processing that I've done, but I didn't get to the energetic level of it. And I could just see that there's all these patterns and behaviors that I'm unconsciously doing that are pointing to a specific energy structure to our dynamics, our relationship. What do I mean by that? So here's an actual physical example. So one thing I've noticed is that every time I would talk to her, she is in a religious cult. Have been doing this work for the past 5 years, and there was like this very toxic dynamics that would happen, that she's always trying to save me from going to hell, for example, which is her beliefs. And I kind of mirrored the same way, the same thing, where I was trying to save her from going into a really dark place and like really, just like really kind of being stuck in this place. And I realized at one point that I was basically mirroring what she's doing. And like, this is basically, there's no space for empowerment. Like we're basically trying to save each other, and we're trying to control each other, but it's all on an energetic level. So it takes a lot of, like, it's very subtle. And it takes a lot of awareness. So one thing I could really feel, the energetic of our relationship that was very like enmeshed, like very like congested together. So my process this year was to let go of my mom. And the way it looks like is to come out of the cage that she created for herself that I chose to go into, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. And that cage has also kept me away from, stepping into my power. It kept me like playing small. And there's a lot of programmings around that, like religious programming, societal programming, generational programmings. And so what I've decided is to choose to get out of the cage so I can do my own thing and step into my own power and fully step into what I'm here to do. And so that means like letting her go, meaning not trying to fix her or change her or save her. And now that I'm feeling into the energetics of our relationship, I can feel it like so much lighter. I always go to this side because I can feel like it's kind of like here. And I can feel like the energetics of that knot that was there energetically is way more open and light. So it's really interesting. So what I've learned too is that like to really feel into the energetics behind different relationships. And if I work with clients, it's like, the energetics behind, your relationship with money or your relationship to a specific person. If it's a karmic connection, especially with my mom, there's definitely intense karmic connection that is very, very, very intense. And it's very common with parents. Then it kind of leads me to diving into my relationship with my father and like realizing that my entire work all these years was my relationship with my mother, because it was very clear, it was very much there, it was very intense. There was like a lot of butting heads when I was little. And when it came to my dad, it always felt to me like I'm like a deer in a headlight. It's like, what's happening? I don't know even how to, I don't even know what's happening, because my dad was kind of there, not for good or for bad. He was kind of in the background, and it just got to me to a place that, oh my gosh, like when I'm really trying to feel energetically into my relationship with my dad, I have like a huge void. Like this is like the embodiment of that. If you see this on YouTube, it's like, I can't speak. I don't even know what to say. So really understanding like that, it brought up a lot of anger and like processing a lot of things around that, because there was a lot of frustration of not being able to feel the anger, that my dad wasn't there to teach me, to protect me, to show me how to be in the world. And it created this place where I couldn't even access the anger. It was just like I was kind of like left hanging in the air, like just kind of stuck and frozen. So it was like really the process of becoming aware of that and, connecting with the frustration around, and there was even more frustration and more anger the more I kind of processed that and went deep into it, that like, at least with my mom, it was very clear, that there was some kind of passion, there was some kind of connection, even though it wasn't like a quote unquote, like a positive connection. It was like very negative, because we were always like butting heads and like we was always get to like intense interactions. But with my dad, there was none of that. And like, it got me to a place where like really getting angry, like, well, with my mom, at least it was clear. With my dad, not only it was not clear, but also he got a huge pass all these years. All these years I said like, oh, he's not capable, or like he's this or he's that or whatever. I kind of gave him a pass. And so it brought up even more like rage in me that I processed when I went into it, that not only he wasn't there, but it's also like he got a pass all these years. So a huge realization that came to me doing my ALA, which is Ascension Leadership Academy program that I've done this year, which was an amazing program. A huge realization was for me to understanding the ways that I've been showing up in life and how it's reflecting to the bottom line, my relationship with my dad, my relationship with my mom. So my relationship with my mom was very angry, very attacking, very like aggressive. And my relationship with my dad, avoidant, non-existent. So this is the two ways that have been really dominant, the way that I've been showing up in life, which was very avoidant, and as well as very angry and aggressive to certain things. Which the anger and aggression, I feel like it's something I've been working on, and the avoidance is something I've been working on too. But it's not a linear journey. There's always more layers and there's always more depth. But it was really interesting for me to actually understand, like, oh, that's really interesting to look at my interaction with my mother and my interaction with my father and see, oh, this is the ways that I've been showing up in life. So that was a huge one. Another piece that is coming up for me was around like fear of intimacy, fear of connection, the way that I've been avoiding connection. And like that was also a huge thing that came up for me in ALA. Like, yeah, there's like a lot of fear, like a lot of fears in general. Like I feel like this year I've really dove into big fears, like fear of bugs, fear of darkness, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being seen, fear of fear of failure, fear of success, like a lot of big fears that I've been kind of processing. So that was huge one, really diving into the fears and understanding like I guess this is another one, like understanding the energetics behind fear and learning a lot about like fear and like what fear is, which is false evidence appearing real, and like really dive into the energetics and like really feeling how I'm probably going to make a whole YouTube video about that too, but really feeling into the energetics of fear. And it's basically, I hope it'll make sense, but it's like really like feeling like there's something there that was cut off, and that cut off, there's like a black hole, like there's a like a illusion. Basically fear is illusion, but fears are also there to guide you back to yourself. But the problem is that we all don't want to look at our fears because it's scary. But if we actually look at our fears and kind of dive into the fear, we can actually, it's there to help us, guide us back to ourselves. As well as brings me another piece, like physical misalignments, which is physical health, like, health issues. And I went into a whole thing around that and like really understanding like the roots of where it's coming from in the energetics. So a huge thing that I actually made a whole YouTube video about when I was kind of in the middle of that process. So I'm going to put it up here. It was around like my hair falling out and like how it has been connected to my like a generational thing around my mother's side. So that was a huge process that I've been kind of working on, that is kind of like almost coming to a completion now. Another really huge piece that I've been kind of processing this year was sexual trauma. So this year was like a lot of processing around sexual trauma, and like it was a lot of catharsis, a lot of really going into the depth of it, being with my inner child, giving myself space to feel all of the emotions, the grief, the rage, all of that. A lot of really deep connection with my inner child, a lot of really, really deep connection with my inner child, and like really being with her in the fear, being with her in the loneliness, being with her in the aloneness of her experience, being with her in whatever emotion and whatever experience that she felt. A lot of, with the sexual trauma, there was like a lot of sexual trauma, like that is generational from my mother's side, that I tapped into, that is been sitting in my womb. I actually made a YouTube video about that too, so I'm going to put it up here, because a lot of this process that I was working through was things that I've been always like working on. A lot of generational, programmings and traumas, especially around being Jew. A lot of shadows around being Jewish, with the whole October 7th thing. It brought up a whole thing. So made a whole YouTube video about that too, which I'm going to put it up here as well. And really diving into the like collective shadow like that we have as a race, and again, like the shadow that I've been doing as an individual, but how it goes outward, as above so below, as within so without, really seeing the shadow that we hold as a collective, as so in our family lineage, in our like culture, and it grows out to our race and our species as humans. So there's like a lot of layers there. I really got into sex trafficking and the energetics behind that. And oh my gosh, that was a whole rabbit hole. Like it was a whole, it was around the time that I was processing my sexual trauma. And when I was processing my sexual trauma, one time I did a medicine journey where I had this realization of this person that sexually abused me when I was 4 years old. I had this realization that, like, oh, this is actually just kind of completion of the healing circle. Meaning, in other words, like this person, I could just see and feel how what I've been doing to this person and like other people in past lives around that type of like, you know, sexual abuse and like things that I was participating in a past life, like horrible things that I've done. And it just really brought up to me this like, oh, like that was just a closing of a circle and of the healing, a completion of the healing, and just really having this unexplainable drive to work and transmute collective energetics, like really dark energetics around sex trafficking. And I was like, oh yeah, like there's something in me that has this intense drive, especially working on the energy field and working, like doing a lot of greed work around that. But then also it's kind of tricky because you can easily bypass when you kind of have this realization, because then you're like, oh, well, I've done this in past life, then I'm not going to feel the rage, the grief, and all these things. So it's very tricky. So I was kind of dipping in and out to my experience as a human in this body, in this lifetime, and out into the bigger picture, into like what's happening on a collective level and like on a more soul level stuff, if you will. So there was a lot of, you know, root, sacral chakra, you know, like around safety, generational, like security, stability, a lot of stuff around that. And then sacral, really stepping into my sexuality and my sensuality once I felt complete with the sexual trauma that I was processing. I felt kind of, the energy took me into a place of like, oh, I really want to step into my sexuality and my sensuality as a woman in a conscious and healthy way. So that's kind of like being, you know, journey. And that opened a whole new realm, like an entire realm that I haven't even looked at, that I didn't even know exist. I knew it existed, but it just was not the time for me to look at. But it opened a whole new realm of like sexual healing and just a lot of stuff around that. And even like expressing my desires and expressing, just saying what I want, and just realizing how hard it was for me to express what I want, to just say what it is that I want. Oh, a lot around that. Really diving more into my purpose and like gaining confidence in what I do and what I offer as a healer, as a guide. And yeah, a lot of confidence gaining around that. A lot of like, let me try and see what works. A lot of like, let me experiment on this and see how it works. And, you know, and a lot of times, you know, certain things didn't work, and certain things like, oh wow, there's something here. So a lot of experiments around that. A lot of stepping into my power, but also fear of my own power that kept coming up. And I'm going to share a little thing about spider that's been a huge thing on my journey too. So I had this huge fear of bugs. I'm still kind of working on it, but like it's still like it's very much in the process. And one of my biggest fear was fear of spiders. And in my ayahuasca medicine journey, the day two, the entire medicine, I felt like there was like a huge spider walking all over me. And it's like my biggest fear. And I was like losing it. I was freaking out. I was like, ah, oh my God, oh my God. So that was like the opening of something really big, that led me to really look into, like really understanding that I hold the spider medicine. Because what I do with my energy healing with clients and also working on the energetic grid of the planet is I weave. This is what I do. I work on the energy field in a weaver's, like weaving kind of, this is what I do. And realizing like, oh, this is what the spiders are doing, and really understanding and integrating the idea of like, oh, this is the medicine that I hold as a healer. And the idea of like, oh, my fear of spiders really represent the fear of my own power. And I had this like really intense want to go to an exotic pet store and go meet a spider and connect with the spider and hold a spider, which I haven't done yet because I don't know why the universe doesn't want me to do it yet. I've tried to call many times, and then the person there was sick, and then I got COVID, and I really tried to kind of like step into it, but it's definitely something I'm probably going to do in the next few weeks. I'm just continuing to try and see. But it's interesting because in the meantime, there's a lot of things on the way that are coming up that feels like an initial steps. Like one example is like I did a hypnosis session last week, which I may kind of do a whole YouTube video about that. But I did an hypnosis session with my friend Lexi. She's here in Austin. She's amazing, but I believe she does it online too. And I had a conversation with a spider in the hypnosis and like really getting to know it. And like the message was like, the spider was telling me like, you're not trying to get to know me. Like you're just not curious about me. So you just don't know me. You're just afraid of me because you don't know me, and you keep othering me. You keep separating. So that was a huge teaching for me. So I'm literally in that place too. I feel like this is the things that are coming up for me. There was a lot of other things around relationships, community. We really grew in our community and really dove into some deep work together as a community, creating events, like learned a lot about like, what it is that I want to do, and like kind of, a lot about learning to slow down. Oh my gosh, I forgot this one. Slowing down. It has been probably the hardest thing for me this year. Slowing down, self-love, feeling enough, even if I don't do anything. A lot of practicing around that. Really dove into my meditation practice, developing my psychic intuitive abilities, channeling a lot of things like that. So, and there was a lot more, but feels like a lot for me to share in this video. And I'm probably I have like a really nice things here to kind of dive into in different videos, like into just kind of focus on one thing. But these are the things that I've learned from 2024, and it's been a year of so much growth. And today, when I'm recording this video, you may see it later, is December 31st. So it's the last day of the year of 2024, and it's been absolutely really transformative year. Probably, I mean, I feel like the last 2 years for me has been like so transformational. What I'm going to do too, and I actually heard it from my friend Carly, she's holding a monthly new moon and full moon like circles online, and I joined her circle yesterday, because it was new moon Capricorn yesterday, which I don't know much about astrology, but it is interesting. It is something I believe in. I really get into human design too. Oh, that's another thing in 2024 that I got into, human design, and really understanding so much deeper layer about the chakras, which is my focus, and this is the work that I do, really deepening my understanding around the chakras. But going back to what she was saying yesterday, she was kind of bringing this idea of write yourself a letter from your future self from December 2025, acknowledging and sharing, things that you've accomplished, of things that you've done, sending it to, like, it's a letter from your future self to your current self. Oh, this is where I'm at, this is what I've done, and make it like, of course, realistic. But I was like, oh, this is cool to do that. And I don't really like journaling, like writing. I prefer video journaling. I prefer to speak. So I want to invite you, if you feel called, because she kind of shared that, and this is something that I want to, offer to you too, to maybe make a video or a letter from your future self. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you feel the resonance, if you like it, and let me know in the comments if you resonate with any of the things that I've shared that I went through this year. And thank you for watching.